You're listening to a CNA podcast.
I bet the next time you step into the doctor's clinic, your local GP or the hospital, you're absolutely not thinking about the planet. You're naturally worried about your own health or the health of a loved one. But would you believe that the medical industry contributes more greenhouse gas emissions than the aviation sector or the shipping industry? Two industries that regularly get spoken about, often the subject of deep debate about decarbonisation. Today, we're doing a long overdue health check on the health sector. Hi, and welcome to Climate Conversations. I'm Jack Board. Hello, Liling Tan. How are you doing? How's your health?
Hello, Jack. It's good to hear from you again. I'm well, apart from a paper cut on my thumb, and it hurts. Yeah, I know. Poor me.
Oh.
But because I knew we were about to talk about the carbon footprint of the medical and healthcare sector and the massive amount of waste it generates, I avoided Band-Aids. So now the cut might be infected, but there's one less Band-Aid in the landfill.
An infected cut?
Oh, no, it's okay. I think it's...
That's a good sacrifice that you're making.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you're a leading example.
Baby steps.
Before you come on to talk about these things. Today we are going to talk about some of the ills of the medical sector. And throughout the episode we'll be dissecting this, other factors that make the healthcare industry bad for the climate. Also some of the solutions that are being explored to strike a better balance when it comes to the health of the planet and its people. First, weekly quiz. Keeping it simple. Last week, I think you were busting out your Avril Lavigne lyrics in response to the complicated nature of the question.
Yes, always.
Today, tell me, which country spends the most money on health per person on a yearly basis? This is using figures from 2022, and it includes both public and private expenditure.
Okay, so basically how much money goes into keeping each person in the country healthy, whether it's through healthcare coverage or whether it's paid out of pocket, right?
Basically, who's spending the most on the health of its people?
Okay.
Stay with us. Answer at the end. Okay, news time, Liling. What have you got for me?
I've got Mickey D's, or as most of us call it, McDonald's.
Macca's.
Macca's, is that what you call it back down there? So first up, this advertisement from McDonald's Singapore has gotten some unwanted attention. Now, the ad promotes the popularity of its garlic chili sauce available in the local market, and it says it gives out about 134 million sachets of the sauce every year. It's about the popularity of this garlic chili sauce, isn't it? Now, the news site EcoBusiness, however, reported that a member of the public lodged a complaint with Singapore's advertising watchdog, saying the ad celebrates waste, and it does so at a time when Singapore is also trying to reduce the volume of waste it generates. Now, the watchdog later did rule that the McDonald's ad does not breach advertising code, but that's just looking at it from the advertising angle, right? The point the article makes is that these single-use sachets are layered with different materials, including plastic, and that makes them very difficult to recycle. So it makes you think about where all those discarded, unrecyclable garlic chili sauce sachets end up.
This was a staggering own goal for me, in my opinion, by McDonald's. I can't believe they put up that advertisement.
Yes.
134 million little plastic sachets and saying, oh, this is Singapore, this is what we do. We know that these types of small plastics are really bad for the environment. It's so wasteful. I always, if I'm ordering fast food, have to say, please don't bring me the sauces and the sachets. And normally you still get them, 20 or 30 little packets. Even though the advertising watchdog ruled in McDonald's favor, I think it's a faux pas.
Yeah, and that's just the garlic chili sauce, right? There's ketchup too, and I think some places they have mayonnaise, right?
The delicious spicy barbecue sauce.
Yes, I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
Hey, McDonald's, let's think of a sustainable way to distribute your sauces.
Absolutely.
Now, bear attack.
I've got polar bear attacks.
This didn't happen in Singapore, though.
No. I don't know if you read about this, but earlier this month, there was a polar bear attack in Canada when two bears killed a technician at this remote Arctic radar station. Now, we know polar bear attacks are rare, but there have been reports of other sightings and encounters as well, both fatal and non-fatal. An attack last year in an Alaskan village actually ended up with a woman killed as well as her 1-year-old boy. Now, these point to what the Guardian newspaper calls a looming clash between polar bears and the northern communities that share their territory, as the loss of sea ice shrinks their hunting and breeding grounds.
Yeah, and this human-animal collision course isn't just happening up north in the Arctic, and nor is it just polar bears. In general, what we're seeing is these interactions between humans and animals are increasing everywhere.
That's right.
In these parts, in Thailand, it's elephants, it's tigers. And who gets blamed? It's normally the animals. And who gets harmed? Okay, in these cases, some people, but normally, actually, it's the animals. And while we're talking about bears, the situation is pretty dire. A journalist friend of mine recently wrote a book about it called 8 Bears, which tracks the history and the future of all the bear species around the world. And she says that only 3 of them may survive into the next century.
Wow.
And their behaviors are so altered now that they can't really even last in the wild on their own either.
And if you really think about this, we are encroaching on their territory, and then they in turn are encroaching back on the territory that we have encroached upon. So everybody's just mixed up together, and these interactions, these collisions are becoming increasingly difficult to avoid. And you asked me earlier if there are bears here in Singapore. We don't get bear attacks here.
I was aware, thank you.
We do, however, have otters living among us. And they do attack people as recently as a few weeks back.
Do they?
This guy, I think he lost a finger. He had to go through 3 hours of surgery. And it's not the first time that we've heard about these attacks. I got to tell you.
But the otters are cute in Singapore.
They are,
I
but
love
they're
the otters.
nasty little critters. I'm terrified of them. I'm terrified of a lot of things, but these otters is just like a whole different level. So not only now do we have to worry about pathogens becoming more prevalent from climate change and population increase, we're also having to worry about predators too, and apex ones at that.
All right. I'm not calling an otter an apex predator.
They are. Within their realm, I think they are regarded as apex predators.
No, we love otters here on Climate
Let's
Conversation.
put you and an angry otter in a room and see what happens.
Oh, it'll be so nice to watch. Okay, let's go to our main story this week. There's some dark irony that the medical sector itself is greatly contributing to the declining health of the population. If we're being real, that's what we're talking about here. It's estimated that 5% of global greenhouse gas emissions are caused by the medical sector. And in advanced economies, it's a number that goes up to 10%. Aviation, 2 to 3%. Shipping, it's about the same, just to compare. And the emissions, what do? They directly impact human life, human health, life expectancy. Liling brings us a new disease being spread because of climate change. It feels every week.
I'm not bringing you the disease. I'm bringing you
reason.
news of the disease.
Okay. Small asterisk, just bringing us the news. But the same industry that helps us fight these diseases also contributes to their cause. In fact, the World Health Organization says climate change is now the biggest health threat facing humanity. So that equals an additional 250,000 deaths every year between 2030 and 2050 from things like malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, heat stress. Am I making sense here? Have I spooked you?
Yes, you have. You're spooking the already spooked. Yes.
Now, a lot of those emissions from the medical sector are connected to the medical supply chain. That makes sense, right? We have energy usage as well in buildings, hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, pharmaceutical operations. And then there's the transportation as well, like patient transport and medical waste disposal.
Yeah, medical waste. There are the biopsies and the stuff they remove during surgeries, yuck, the tissue and the fluids and all the infectious stuff. All that has to go somewhere, right? Usually they're incinerated or destroyed at high temperatures, something they call autoclaving. But then there's the other type of medical waste that's a huge problem as well. Single-use devices, medical packaging, that sort of stuff. If you remember COVID-19,
I do.
Jack.
I do remember.
Okay. Remember all that testing? Did you know that generated so much waste?
Yeah.
A tally by the website Our World in Data shows the US itself alone performed more than 900 million tests. India, more than 850 million. And these are just two countries out of pretty much the whole world, right? And one estimate in 2022 put the total global biomedical waste from COVID-19, including things like test tubes, syringes, and plastic containers, at about more than 15,000 metric tons a day.
That's a lot. Outside of COVID as well, just think of all the disposables that are used throughout the broader industry on any given day, used and unused. Plastic items, syringes, linens, drugs, packaging, face masks, gloves, bandages. Not Band-Aids, Lily, not using your Band-Aids today. You've helped the world. Gowns as well. Think of all the gowns that are being used. And then stack them all up. That's so much stuff.
It's huge.
Yeah. And overall, the issue with this sector's carbon footprint actually goes way back. The North American NGO Healthcare Without Harm in 2019 found that if the global healthcare sector was a country, it would be the 5th largest greenhouse gas emitter on the planet. What to do? Some things seem fairly simple. One solution comes back to energy systems that power our cities, and we talk about this a lot. If renewables can power hospitals, which are way more intensive than normal commercial buildings, that makes a big difference. Then there's also work that's being done to make a lot of the medical equipment much more energy efficient. That's a big thing as well. Then instead of the very intensive nature of medical care, what if new technology improvements means you don't actually have to go and physically visit the hospital so much? You got more virtual care between professional and patient, and new software that would make diagnosis faster, more streamlined. So we're cutting waste at every step of people's time and resources and the emissions that go with that. The next point as well is the sustainability of the materials, which you mentioned, and making the use of medical equipment and devices and systems just be more circular in nature.
The problem, though, is trying to reduce this usage of plastics and other forms of packaging in the medical sectors. It's easier said than done. Single-use disposable plastics are, as we know, critical in the healthcare setting because they are very effective in reducing contamination and infection. And in a word, they save lives. And not having them is the kind of risk hospitals cannot afford to take right now. So it's really a matter of trying to find the right balance. And some of the solutions being looked at involve cutting back on the volume of materials actually being used or opting for reusable or refillable alternatives where possible, and also switching to materials that might be more recyclable or biodegradable. So it's the concept of reduce, reuse, recycle, but catered to the healthcare sector's needs.
Yeah, and it's going to require countries and cities to step up. And there are goals that have been created, something that the WHO calls climate resilient and low carbon sustainable health systems, something that they're trying to usher in. In our region, the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia are among dozens of countries from around the world that have signed up with formal commitments. And Indonesia actually has this really ambitious goal of a net zero health sector by 2030. It's one of the most ambitious in the world. Interesting.
Yeah, now I'm seeing a lot of these goals that were earlier targeted for 2030.
It's not far away. Yeah.
And I think a lot of them are not on track. We'll see, right? Singapore, too, just last month launched a new academy to help healthcare institutions here adopt sustainable solutions and reduce the carbon footprint. And over here, too, several hospitals have also committed to decarbonizing their operations.
So Singapore doesn't have the formal commitment, unlike some of its neighbours, but yeah, it's all about the progress, not just having a goal on paper, as we know with so many of these climate topics that we discuss. So yeah, I guess we'll keep an eye on how it all tracks. Okay, quiz time. To repeat the question for you, which country spends the most money on health per person on a yearly basis?
America.
It is the US.
Yay!
At about $12,500 US a year per person. And interestingly, about $4,000 more than any other country, more than second place Switzerland and then Germany. And interestingly as well, is that I don't know how effective that health system really is when you consider that American life expectancy is 56th in the world.
Yeah, and you know, the healthcare system isn't as robust. A couple of years back, there was a lot of talk about how it lacks a universal healthcare system, right? It's one of the only or few first world nations or developed nations without universal healthcare. This was before the Affordable Care Act under Obama. I meet this guest also out of personal experience. When I had my baby, guess how much the bill was that we received before insurance coverage?
This is like a quiz within the quiz here.
Yeah, take a wild guess. It's going to blow your mind.
Quiz inception happening right now. Oh, I've got no idea. $50,000.
$92,000
Wow.
just to deliver a baby. And this is before the insurance companies came in. And in the end, we ended up paying considerably less. But yeah, that kind of gives you an idea of how absurd healthcare can cost.
It's crazy stuff. All right, that's it for Climate Conversations this week. Thanks for joining us.
And until next week, I'm Liling Tan.
I'm Jack Board. Thanks as always as well to the team that put together this podcast, Tiffany Ang, Janani Johari, Crispina Robert, and Sai Yewin.